Breaking news.
Well, we want to get back out to that breaking news that we've been following from our newsroom of a plane flying from Wichita. We know that it has crashed into a helicopter in Washington, D.C. Right now, you're taking a live look from that scene. We know the flight number is Flight 5342 out of Wichita. This is a Bombardier CRJ-7 jet that holds around 62 to 78 people. The Federal Aviation Administration, which says the collision remains under investigation right now. There's no immediate word on any casualties, but we know that takeoffs and landings from the airport near Washington have been halted at this time. And right now, Michael Schwenke joining me now with more information about this.
Yeah, Rachel, watching all news sources, of course, a lot of reporting out of the D.C. area, and we're hearing from people out there as well, saying that the full-scale search and rescue operation is underway. Okay, we're welcoming in viewers now on Channel 12. If you've seen the reports, there has been a plane inbound into D.C., but that plane originated here from Wichita.
Right.
It was an American Airlines flight 5342. Getting reports now from the FAA that this, and here's a live look outside of Reagan International Airport there in D.C., and you can see all the emergency crews there along the river, again, in a search and rescue operation right now. There is video that we're hoping to get here soon, showing this plane colliding with what they believe was a helicopter. CNN reporting from the FAA that helicopter was a military helicopter, a Black Hawk, that the plane collided into. So we, again, Flight 5342, Rachel, the plane itself was operated by PSA.
An American Eagle flight is
an
what
American Eagle flight. You know, those are the smaller regional jets, but they seat anywhere from 60 to 75 people depending on the configuration. We're not getting at this point any good reporting yet because it's just not possible if there are any survivors. Ross Jansen joining us again here as rescuers operate in frigid water. But Ross, you were saying the weather tonight there fairly mild for this time of year.
Yeah, I mean the temperature right now is about 50 degrees in D.C. And just to kind of show you a map of Reagan National Airport, of course we have the Potomac River here, and there are 3 different runways there. The most common one that gets used is the one that we've highlighted in yellow because it's over a mile long and it basically runs due north and south. But the plane was coming in on this shorter runway. It's just a little bit shorter than a mile long, and so the collision would have happened just off the edge of the runway. Again, we know that this is a water rescue, but the water temperatures, I just was able to look and see, most of the water temperatures are in the 30s, so it wouldn't take very long for hypothermia to set in. So this is going to have to be a quick recovery rescue effort. Should still be probably a rescue effort, not necessarily recovery, but as the night goes on, it's probably going to become a recovery effort because the water is just too cold. The human body wouldn't be able to survive in that kind of water temperature for very long. So let's hope that they do find some survivors from this crash. But again, 3 different runways. We've highlighted both of them. The most common one that you would land on if you were flying into D.C. would be the one highlighted in yellow, but the plane tonight would have collided just off of the edge of this one that's highlighted in white. I've posted the winds here because the East Coast has been hit with some really strong winds, but unless something comes out later tonight or in the coming days that would reveal the wind had something to do with it, doubtful, because those wind gusts that we've listed there from D.C., any aircraft should be able to handle that without too much concern. But the wind was coming out of the west around 7 o'clock. By 9 p.m. it had switched back to the northwest, so that would make sense that the plane was coming in on this shorter runway trying to land with the wind coming into the nose of the aircraft. But again, there you see the different runways tonight, just kind of setting all of this up. Of course, this would be east, this would be north, and so that plane was approaching a shorter runway at Reagan National. So that's kind of an overview of how Reagan lays out. A very busy airport, which we know tonight has been shut down because of the crash.
From 12 News, breaking news.
And we welcome you back to 12 News this morning. I'm Felicia Rolfe.
And I'm Britton Rucker. This morning we are following breaking news after a flight that departed from Wichita crashed in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, it happened last night. Let's get over to our 12 News reporter Max Dutton, who joins us live from Eisenhower National Airport this morning on the latest of the crash.
Yeah, Felicia, this is exactly where American Airlines Flight 5342 took off yesterday as they were headed towards Reagan National Airport in Washington, D.C. Now, at the time of that crash, there are 60 passengers, 2 flight attendants, and 2 pilots on board as they collided with that military helicopter shortly before landing in D.C. Take a look at your screen. We do have footage from the scene shortly after this happened while the aircraft crashed in the Potomac River. Overnight, rescuers confirmed they recovered 19 bodies from the river and have not found any survivors this morning. Among those on the plane were members of U.S. figure skating. They'd been competing in Wichita all week long. This morning, Eisenhower Airport is providing support to families who are waiting to hear the status of their loved ones. Wichita Mayor Lily Wu says American Airlines reached out to her shortly after the crash. Here's what she had to say last night.
American Airlines did give me a call today informing me of the incident that happened with one of our Wichita to Washington, D.C. flights. We are waiting for further information that is confirmed. At this time, as a council, we really want to ask each and every Wichitan, Kansan, and American to pray for everyone involved in this incident, whether involved in the incident in D.C. or those who are helping with the rescue efforts.
And we expect to learn a lot more later this morning at 8 o'clock. There's a press briefing at City Hall. That's where we'll hear from Wichita's Mayor Lily Wu. We'll also kind of find out exactly what happened, hopefully, as to what the plan is moving forward. At noon at City Hall, there's going to be a prayer vigil hosted by the Greater Wichita Ministerial League. Guys.
We sure appreciate it, Max. Thank you. Well, U.S. Figure Skating put out a statement regarding the crash, saying in part, "We are devastated by this unspeakable tragedy and hold the victims' families closely in our hearts." A source told Reuters as many as 15 people on the flight were involved in figure skating. Again, officials have not said how many people died in the accident, but suggest there may be no survivors.
Today, there will be no flights to or from D.C. at Eisenhower National Airport. We checked with Eisenhower this morning, and they say American Flight 5499 is canceled. It was set to arrive in Wichita at 4:45 this afternoon. Meanwhile, American Flight 5342 was set to leave Eisenhower at 5:18 p.m. That flight also canceled. Keep in mind, flight numbers stay the same from day to day.
We are awaiting 2 press conferences this morning where we expect to learn about the plane crash in Potomac. Now, the first one at 6:30 this morning, Washington's D.C. mayor will hold a briefing at that time. We will bring that to you live here on 12 News this morning, so in less than 30 minutes for that first press conference from Washington, D.C. Then at 8 o'clock, we will hear from local officials here in Wichita. They are holding a press conference at City Hall. We'll have that for you live as well, and we'll have that on the KSCW. That's Cable 5 over the air, channel 33. And we'll also stream it for you on our 12 News app. Make sure to download that if you don't have it yet.
You're watching 12 News at 6.
Oh, what happened?
Oh my God!
Tragically, last night, a mistake was made.
We have been told that there are no survivors.
We are going to get to the bottom of this investigation.
Lord, we cry out right now for those that are affected by this tragedy.
Welcome in. We begin with a live look at the Potomac River, where that American Airlines plane that left Wichita crashed into an Army helicopter last night. Today, confirming 60 people and 4 crew members on that passenger plane are believed to have died, as well as 3 people aboard the helicopter.
We do have Team 12 coverage tonight as we continue to learn more and get reaction from the community. But we first want to head over to Jacob Albrock, who will break down what we know so far. Jacob.
Rachel, Mike, that midair collision between the Army helicopter and American Airlines Flight 5342 is the country's worst aviation disaster in a generation. We've learned that dive teams have ceased operations because they've recovered all the bodies they're able to without moving that fuselage. At least 40 bodies have been recovered so far, including at least 1 soldier from the Army helicopter. But an FAA report obtained by the Associated Press says the staffing was, quote, not normal, and that 1 air traffic controller was working 2 positions at the time. The NTSB is leading the investigation into how the collision occurred. They spoke this afternoon and say their goal is to publish a preliminary report about the crash within 30 days.
We are all here because this is an all-hands on-deck event. And we're here to assure the American people that we are going to leave no stone unturned in this investigation. We are going to conduct a thorough investigation of this entire tragedy, looking at the facts.
She says a final report will be issued once all the fact-finding and investigating is finished, and she did not indicate exactly when that might happen, but again, hoping within 30 days. Mike.
Jacob, thank you. There is an outpouring of support from Wichitans today as the community gathers to remember those lives lost in Flight 5342.
Today, a prayer vigil was held at Wichita City Hall. That's where we find 12 News reporter Brock Wilson, who was at the vigil. Brock, what was the scene like there today?
Rachel, Mike, the only word I can think of to use to describe the mood today was somber. By my count, more than 100, maybe closer to 200 people packing inside the Wichita City Council chambers to say a prayer for the families that lost loved ones in the Flight 5342 crash.
Our Father, which art in heaven.
It's overwhelming.
I mean, obviously shock.
The Wichita community beginning the healing process.
Lord Jesus, we pray over the lives that are impacted by this collision that took place at the Reagan Airport.
Holding a prayer vigil to support the families of those lost during Wednesday's plane crash.
I just felt the call to come out and be a part of our community and be in prayer for the people affected by the tragedy. And
some joining from the faith community.
Amen. Amen.
Others because they attended the U.S. Figure Skating Championships in Wichita.
Just really enjoyed that and had such profound respect for the individuals. They gave their hearts out on the rink, and then to hear this tragedy, it came home.
Everyone I spoke with saying it's hard to process what happened.
I mean, obviously shock at the tragedy.
I've just had such sympathy and empathy for the families, and then I say that and I can't even begin to know what that must be like. One day, your child, your husband, your wife, your family is getting on a plane and the next they don't arrive.
But they also feel an overwhelming amount of hope, seeing the outpouring of support from the community.
Incredibly encouraging. Yeah, it's so encouraging to see so many faith leaders come out and leaders, praying for people that are affected by this. It's incredibly encouraging.
Now, those same people also telling me they're not at all surprised at how many people showed up today saying this is the Wichita community. We show up for each other. Rachel.
Brock, thank you so much. Tonight we're learning that a couple from Kiowa, Kansas, among those dead in the midair collision.
Kale Chapman just talked to a family friend. Kale, what did you learn about that couple?
Mike, Rachel, I spoke with Michael Simpson. He's known Bob and Lori Schrock since he was just a kid. He says that the Schrocks were avid travelers. They both died last night on board that flight. Michael says that both Bob and Lori helped him and the boys at his boys ranch that he runs for years. He says they were generous people that led lives of integrity.
First thought was like, Wichita's way too close for this not to impact. So, I mean, we're going through the Rolodex in my head, like, okay, who do I know that might be flying out? And honestly, I never even considered Bob and Lori. And then I got a text this morning saying, hey, Michael, there's a bad rumor flying around that. At first I was like, no, that doesn't happen to us. Of course, they're too good of people for that to happen to, that would, and that hit really hard.
Michael says that the Schrocks' generosity knew no bounds, that they would help out wherever they were needed. You can see our full conversation with Michael here at 10 o'clock on KWCH.
Gail, thank you. We've also learned that a well-known civil rights attorney and a former Miss Kansas contestant died in the crash. Kia Duggins was an attorney with the Civil Rights Corps. She grew up in Wichita, attended high school here, went on to graduate from Harvard Law. She represented Miss Kansas organization as Miss Butler County back in 2015.
Several of those killed in the plane crash were in Wichita for the U.S. figure skating event that took place this week.
TJ Cleveland joining us live now from Intrust Bank Arena with the skating community as they remember those lost.
Yeah, Mike, Rachel, not only a tragic day for the community of Wichita, but for the community of the figure skaters all over the world. After the national championships were had here at Intrust Bank Arena, after the week that was had, those that were on that plane to Washington, D.C. last night will forever be a part of history.
To go from the extreme emotion of pure joy from having hosted to such a tragic loss, it's really hard to wrap your head around right now.
Those emotions portraying a roller coaster of emotions for the city of Wichita and the figure skating world. A total of 17 figure skaters, family members, and coaches, including 2 former Olympians on Flight 5342 Wednesday night, leaving their communities mourning, such as the Skating Club of Boston.
They're really making a commitment, and their parents are too, because these are young kids. 2 of the kids we lost were 13 and 16, and their moms were traveling with them, very committed. So the loss is felt by everyone here at the club.
Now, as community members nationwide mourn, they know January 29th will be a day remembered in Wichita history.
That impact is being felt far and wide throughout the community for those that lost loved ones here in Wichita and the region, and those that were involved in U.S. figure skating. Again, it's a tough day for Wichita.
Those athletes that went down on the flight last night in Washington, D.C. were affiliated with the national developmental team that were here for the U.S. championships and are considered the future of U.S. figure skating. Mike.
TJ, thank you. Our thoughts are with them. In response to the tragedy of Flight 5342, the Wichita Foundation launching the ICT Together Fund. This will provide aid to impacted families and local efforts to donate. You can visit the website. They're listed on your screen. We've made it easy for you. We've set up a link at kwch.com and on the 12 News app as well. And recovery efforts on the Potomac River here tonight. As that happens, investigators now try to piece together what caused this. How did it happen? The National Transportation Safety Board leading that investigation.
Today, an internal preliminary FAA report that staffing at Reagan National Control Tower was not normal for the time of day and volume of traffic when that collision happened. Sean Logging talking with aviation attorneys and a pilot who regularly flies at Reagan National Airport. Sean, what are you learning about the airspace of DCA and what comes next?
Like Rachel, those I spoke with today caution against jumping to any conclusions about what caused the mid-air collision. They all say that will come in the days, months, and even years to come. The NTSB and U.S. Army are investigating the details of what happened. A tragedy, leaving many questions.
Thousands or millions of layers of safety, and if you think of it like Swiss cheese, but every once in a great while, unfortunately, something lines up with all of those holes line up.
Ryan lives in Wichita and is a pilot for a regional airline not affiliated with the operator of Flight 5342. He regularly flies in and out of Reagan National Airport, where Flight 5342 was making its final approach, and describes the airspace as very congested, with planes and helicopters constantly moving through.
There is nothing inherently unsafe about the airport, I would say. However, there is just obviously always going to be some level of risk with this much traffic.
Ryan says air traffic control audio indicated there was a conflict alert, and the helicopter responded to air traffic control that it saw the plane.
Was the helicopter pilot looking at the correct traffic out his window there? And again, it's a difficult spot to be in because this CRJ would very likely be unable to see this helicopter from their angle. On final approach, the CRJ has a relatively high pitch.
Confusion at night when pilots say they see something, and it's usually prompted by just the fact that you've got this sea of lights out there.
Mike Slack is an aviation attorney and pilot who has flown into Reagan National. He says part of the investigation is could the pilots hear each other, as military and civilian aircraft often operate on different frequencies.
And as a pilot, I can tell you that I've had many experiences over the years where I did not hear a response by the military aircraft to the tower controller.
The Black Hawk helicopter was also said to be on a training flight. Another aviation attorney tells me this is a common term used.
Certain procedures and things that they wanted to cover so that they could, really maximize the flight to the best interests of the pilots and the crew. And that's why they call it a training flight. So it doesn't really speak to anything else. It doesn't speak to the experience of the pilots.
Ryan also talked to me about the collision avoidance system. There's one in air traffic control that Ryan says in the radio recording you can hear that alert going off. And then he says that commercial planes also have those systems, but below a certain altitude, like the plane on a final descent, it's deactivated as that would throw up many false alarms.
All right, thanks, Sean. In times of tragedy, many people often don't know how to cope. Still to come, mental health experts weigh in, touching on how important it is to seek help during these moments.
And we also heard from our local and state leaders at an afternoon press conference their remarks about Flight 5342.
And there's not a lot of rain out there tonight, but just to the east of Wichita over into Greenwood, Elk, and Chautauqua counties, we do find some steadier showers now. It's mostly moving to the north. There'll be one final round of rain coming later tonight, and then we're gearing up for a warmer stretch into the weekend. A complete look at your forecast still to come.
On behalf of our whole graduating class, I wanted to say that we loved him. We're so proud of him. We're going to miss him so much. And the town of Richmond Hill, this whole area, and just the world at large is a better place for having had him in it.
A high school classmate of co-pilot Sam Lilly remembering his friend. Sam was one of the 64 people on that plane flying from Wichita to D.C. More coverage of the crash of Flight 5342 after the break.
Both the helicopter and the plane crashed in the river.
At this point, we don't believe there are any survivors.
And it's horrific and extremely rare and unprecedented.
What happened yesterday shouldn't have happened.
The goal was to get safety improvements. The safest airplane in the world is the one that doesn't fly.
Tonight marks 6 weeks since the tragedy involving Flight 5342. January 29th, 67 lives were lost when the plane departing from Wichita collided midair with an Army Black Hawk helicopter just seconds before it was scheduled to land at Reagan National Airport in Washington, D.C. This week, the NTSB releasing their preliminary report into their investigation. In that report, they call for action from the FAA to limit helicopter traffic around that airport. Over the next 30 minutes, our investigative team digs into those findings, what recommendations are being made, and what's next to make sure a tragedy like this never happens again. We start with reporter Sean Logging breaking down what the NTSB calls serious safety concerns at Reagan Airport.
A critical safety issue must be addressed without delay.
The NTSB laying out that there is still a lot its investigation has to learn about the mid-air collision of Flight 5342 from Wichita and an Army Black Hawk helicopter on January 29th.
The quickest part of the investigation is determining what happened. The part that takes longer is the how and why.
But making clear Tuesday, action is needed, detailing data it's collected of close proximity events at and near Reagan National Airport between planes and helicopters.
Half of the encounters we reviewed, again from 2011 through 2024, the helicopter may have been above the route altitude restriction.
Jennifer Hamady with the NTSB says at least once a month between 2011 and 2024, there was a traffic collision avoidance system alert requiring immediate action. And at Reagan National between October 2021 and December 2024,
there were 15,214 occurrences or close proximity events between commercial airplanes and helicopters,
with a risk of future collisions.
An intolerable risk to aviation safety.
The NTSB urgently recommends an end to a helicopter route east of Reagan National.
It shouldn't take a tragedy like this to occur. Unfortunately, one did, and so we are calling on action, but there clearly were indicators.
The preliminary report providing information on crew experience, history of the flights, and information from the recorders. The NTSB says those black boxes are where they still have a lot of work because of limits from the recorders on the Black Hawk.
Our team has a lot of work to do.
And those findings highlight the congested airspace around Reagan National has been a problem for years. It's why the NTSB is making two rare but urgent recommendations to the FAA to limit helicopters flying in that area. The first recommendation is to ban helicopters flying on Route 4, while two runways, 15 and 33, are being used for planes landing and taking off. So take a look at this map here. The NTSB wants to eliminate that highlighted helicopter flight path from Haynes Point, directly across the river from the airport, down to Wilson Bridge, while planes are departing and arriving. This is the same route the Army Black Hawk helicopter was on when it collided with Flight 5342 just seconds before landing. The second recommendation would be to find an alternative helicopter route when that segment of Route 4 is closed. The NTSB says they do not have an alternative route picked out as that would be up to the FAA. But an aviation expert tells us this collision could have been avoided if these changes were made sooner.
We can't sit back and wait for a later report. We got to call it right now. We got to say there's action needed and hope that the FAA is listening and responds accordingly. But they're sounding the alarm right now, saying enough's enough.
The Department of Transportation did temporarily restrict helicopter traffic in that area immediately following the January 29th crash. On Tuesday, the DOT announced that they would continue with those restrictions while the NTSB waits to see if the FAA will make those permanent to avoid close encounters between aircraft and helicopters. Now, DOT Secretary Sean Duffy said having helicopters fly down the same path as landing aircraft is like threading a needle, and he questions why the FAA didn't make changes years earlier after thousands of reported close encounters.
How did the FAA not know? How did they not study the data to say, hey, this is a hot spot, we're having near misses, and if we don't change our way, we're going to lose lives? That wasn't done. Maybe there was a focus on something other than safety.
And now the NTSB is looking into busy airspaces not only around Reagan National, but other airports across the country. So here are the next steps in that investigation. The NTSB says it will include flight simulations, interviews, and evaluating data that was captured by the aircraft's electronics. But a final report is not expected for at least a year. When we return, our investigative team sits down with the NTSB to break down one of the key pieces of this investigation, the flight recorder.
Interview with the mother of Kia Duggins. Kia was among the 67 people killed in the January midair collision over the Potomac River.
Dylan Domingue sat down with Gwen Duggins, who believes her daughter would still be alive if flight safety risks were not ignored for years.
Yeah, Mike, Rachel, during that 40-minute interview with Gwen Duggins, she said she still holds on to that last conversation that she had with her daughter. Kia was back in Kansas visiting her mom, who had just had surgery after being diagnosed with breast cancer. The morning of January 29th, Gwen was released from the hospital. That night is when Kia boarded flight 5342 on her way home to Washington, D.C. 2 weeks ago, Gwen took a similar flight to attend the NTSB investigative hearing. She wanted to hear accountability, but instead she says the FAA and the Army gave her more reason to worry. I know that final report should come out between 12 to 18 months, but this story for you does not end at 12 to 18 months. Like when that final report comes out, it may verify some of the things that we heard last week in the NTSB hearing, but that doesn't repair. What is the next step?
When you're grieving, it's very difficult to think of anything else. And I was grieving and trying to heal at the same time. But being at those hearings and hearing the evidence and realizing that this was completely preventable woke up the mama bear in me to say, my daughter did not have to die. She died because people did not do what they were supposed to do.
What was the switch that was different from the 6 months prior?
I wanted them to see my face. I wanted them to understand that you're saying 67 people died, and that sounds so random. It's very impersonal to say 67 people perished. But when you have to look at the faces of the family members who have lost loved ones, you know, it was my hope that it would move them to be honest and transparent.
Is it also that it was not just one thing? Because this was a series of errors that were made over a long period of time, not just that night.
Like, to me, there's a difference between making a mistake and choosing to do the wrong thing. That's what I saw at the NTSB hearings. Oh yeah, we know the altimeters didn't work. Oh yeah, we know that they were flying higher than they should have been. Oh yeah, we know there should have been more people in the FAA. Oh yeah, we know that there's been 15,214 near misses in the last 3 years. Yeah, we know all of that. It's much easier to forgive a mistake than it is to forgive a deliberate choice. And I feel like these have been deliberate choices that have been made.
No amount of time will ever stop the grieving process with it, but you, along with many other families, have been advocates for safety and pushing for more to be done, pushing for more transparency, pushing for more accountability. But how do you balance that?
Because for me, it's about my daughter's legacy. My daughter was an amazing human being, and the world no longer gets to experience her light and what a light she was.
And Kia was just 30 years old at the time of that crash. Now that full interview and all of our Flight 5342 coverage available right now on Amazon Fire, Apple TV, and your Roku. If you don't have the 12 News Connected app, just search for KWCH 12 News on your streaming device.